Welcome to the Addenda series where we will quickly but in detail go through one specific addendum. Today's addendum is one that you should be using, I would say maybe 85% of your transactions, and that is going to be the third party financing addendum. Again, this addendum is something you're going to use quite often. More than likely, you will have a client that needs a loan to purchase a house. If not, you might come across a situation where they would just go cash. Every blue moon, you might see a loan assumption. Very rare that people see the seller financing. Okay, so the third party financing addendum is going to be located in paragraph 3 of the 1 to 4 family contract or any of your promulgated contracts. There's going to be paragraph 3 where we're talking about how much money the buyer is going to spend on this property. One, to determine the sales price, how much is the buyer going to spend on the property? Then we need to figure out how much is your buyer going to pay in cash out of that total, and then how much of it is going to be in a loan out of that total. So you would click on the third party financing addendum box. And then in B, you're determining the loan amount and the down payment amount. Now, on the third party financing addendum, this specifically means that the buyer is going to use a third party to finance the home that they are purchasing. Now, where does the name come from? You have parties in paragraph 1. You have the buyer party, the seller party, and it's just two parties, right? Buyer and seller. Well, now we need to add a third party that's going to give the buyer money to buy from the seller. Okay, so that's where the name comes from. So now on this actual document, when the third party gets involved, what kind of loan is the buyer using to purchase this property? A conventional loan, a VA loan, an FHA loan, a VA guaranteed financing, USDA loan, or reverse mortgage, or some type of other financing, maybe a portfolio loan, and etc. What those loan terms are, the interest rate, how much is the loan origination fee going to cost, how many years is the loan going to be in fruition for or be in place for. All of those questions are what you're answering in all of these boxes. Now, the beautiful part is that you can only pick one of the boxes. So if I'm going to say that my client is using a conventional loan, then B through G is left blank because I'm only using the conventional loan boxes, which are just this section right here. Okay. So again, how much is the loan amount? That's the first box. How many years will the loan be in effect? What is the interest rate? And for how many years will that interest rate be in? And then how much is the lender charging to do the origination fee? Those are the same order of boxes in every single situation down here. Okay. Now, the reason why you have to put in the years two times, right? Because you have the years for the how long the loan is going to be in place, and then you have the years for how long that interest rate is going to be placed because you can purchase a home on an adjustable rate mortgage. So I could have a 5% interest rate, but only for 2 years. But my loan is for 30 years at this loan amount. Does that make sense? So it could be that the rate is going to change, which is why you're putting your years in both spots. So I would not automatically do that unless you know for a fact that this is not an adjustable rate mortgage, meaning that it adjusts depending on the year. And it's going to be a steady flat rate for the whole 30, 25, 20, or 15 years that they're going to do their loan. Okay. Number two is talk about the approval for financing. You only have two options here. Either the contract is dependent on the buyer obtaining approval through the lender, or this contract is not dependent on the buyer obtaining approval. So what that basically means is if the mortgage officer or the mortgage company or the lender cannot officially approve the loan to go through underwriting by a certain amount of days, then the buyer then has the right to terminate the contract because they could not obtain approval. Okay, so that's what this would be. And this is a negotiable amount of days. However long the lender tells you that they need, that's what you put here, not whatever anyone else tells you. You got to ask the lender, can you approve them within 14 days, 21 days, 30 days, 10 days, 2 days, 5 days? You're going to discuss that with the lender. Or if your client wants to have it maybe you're in a multiple offer situation and your client is already conditionally approved, then now this contract is not determined on if your client is going to get approved because they already are. That makes your offer look a little bit more attractive because it takes away a right from the buyer. The buyer no longer has the right to terminate due to this because you're telling them up front. I don't need that right. I already have approval. Okay. Number three just talks about security of the vendor, the deed of trust, things like that. That once, if you don't pay, you don't stay, basically. So there's a security here. And then your FHA provision and VA required provision here. Number four is just talking about the appraisal amount. Now, in another video, the addendum to terminate due to lender's appraisal, we talked about appraisals not meeting value and things like that. But I also was very clear that that document is not used for FHA or VA financing because in the third party financing addendum, we cover it here. So if that property does not appraise for the value of whatever the client is going to purchase the home for, then now the client has another way out of that contract. We are not obligated to fulfill the contract because the house did not appraise. For example, if I'm going to pay 100,000 for the house, but the appraisal comes in at 80,000 and I have an FHA or a VA loan, this provision here protects me and now I can terminate due to that $20,000 gap. Okay. And then the authorization to release information. The lender needs to get information from seller, buyer, title company needs to, move things around. So this is just giving everybody authorization for that lender to move the paperwork around as needed. Okay. And then everybody signs it and we are all good to go. Hopefully that helps.